Let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We are completely reframing Native American history. It's not just a single static narrative of loss. Not at all. We're talking about an epic, sprawling story of profound sophistication and literally thousands of years of endurance. We're going to track an incredible journey of civilizations that adapted, survived, and, as you'll see, are absolutely thriving today against all odds. Let's get right into it.
15,000. Just let that number sink in for a second. For over 15 millennia, North America was definitely not some empty wilderness waiting to be discovered. No, it was a bustling, deeply connected continent home to a massive mosaic of thousands of distinct cultures, languages, and traditions. I mean, we so often compress this history, right? But taking a moment to fully grasp 15,000 years of continuous human innovation, well, that completely sets the stage for the remarkable story of endurance we're unpacking today.
Which brings us to our first chapter, Section 1, Advanced Ancient Innovations, the Era of Sovereignty. Look, way over in the east, the Mississippian culture built Cahokia. This was a massive urban center packed with these colossal earthen pyramids. And get this, its population actually rivaled London at the time. Crazy, right? Meanwhile, out in the southwest, the ancestral Puebloans were engineering incredibly complex, multi-story apartment structures carved directly into sheer canyon walls. I mean, we're talking truly monumental feats of engineering and urban planning, existing long, long before European ships ever even appeared on the horizon.
And when it came to agriculture, absolutely brilliant. They were total masters of the land. Take the Three Sisters technique, for example, planting corn, beans, and squash together. They literally engineered a mutually supporting ecosystem. It's like a perfectly balanced puzzle. The corn provides a strong stalk for the beans to climb. The beans naturally pump essential nitrogen back into the soil, and those broad squash leaves, they suppress weeds and lock in moisture. This highly sustainable system allowed them to support huge, thriving populations in total harmony with their environment.
Politically, their innovations were just as profound, maybe even a real game changer for modern democracy. Up in the Northeast, the Haudenosaunee, you might know them as the Iroquois Confederacy, established the Great Law of Peace. This was a highly sophisticated, representative democracy that successfully united 5 historically warring nations into a single governing body. So, the absolute most crucial point here is that this exact system provided a structural blueprint for federalism, a blueprint that would later directly influence the framers of the United States Constitution. But, of course, things changed. That takes us to Section 2. The Great Disruption, and the ultimate crucible of endurance. The continent transformed, and it transformed at a breakneck pace. European arrival shifted rapidly from initial trade to outright conquest. Fast forward to 1830, and the Indian Removal Act triggered immense, heartbreaking tragedies like the Trail of Tears, forcing thousands of Cherokee and other nations on a deadly march to Western territories. And as the frontier steadily closed throughout the 19th century, nations out on the Great Plains, like the Lakota and Comanche, fought legendary, desperate battles to protect their sacred lands and the buffalo, before ultimately being confined to reservations. But amidst those open military conflicts lurked an even darker, invisible reality. 90%. Lacking natural immunity to introduced diseases, things like smallpox and measles, nearly 90% of the entire indigenous population was completely decimated in what historians now call the Great Dying. It's almost impossible to overstate the scale of that loss. And following that devastation, we enter Section 3, the shadows of assimilation, which was really their ultimate test. Because after the military conflicts ended, a totally new, highly systematic kind of warfare began. Only this time, it was waged with policy instead of weapons. Governments deliberately attempted to completely erase indigenous identity through structured assimilation. Step 1. Native children were forcibly removed from their homes and families for decades and shipped off to distant boarding schools. Step 2. Inside those institutions, they faced harsh punishments just for speaking their mother tongues. And finally, Step 3. They were forced to entirely abandon their ancestral spiritual practices. The explicit goal here was literally to dismantle the tribal structure from the inside out. Yet, and this is where that incredible endurance really shines through, even facing total cultural erasure, they didn't break. Many elders worked in secret to preserve their languages and ceremonies, keeping the embers of their culture alive. In the absolute darkest of times, when practicing their own traditions was strictly outlawed, this quiet, profound act of preservation ensured their heritage wouldn't be extinguished. They basically guarded those embers with their lives, just so future generations might one day fan them back into a roaring flame.
And that beautiful thought brings us to our final chapter. Section 4, Modern Cultural Reclamation, the Rebirth.
Because those carefully protected embers, yeah, they have absolutely ignited into a triumphant, vibrant modern renaissance. Sparked by the civil rights movements of the 1960s and 70s, tribal nations are taking their power back. Right now, they're winning landmark legal battles to regain sovereignty over their lands, their natural resources, and even their own judicial systems. But this rebirth goes way beyond the courtroom. Indigenous youth are stepping up, utilizing cutting-edge digital tools to revitalize what they beautifully call sleeping languages, ensuring the words of their ancestors survive. Plus, Native authors, artists, and filmmakers are finally reclaiming their own narrative, sharing their vibrant, authentic stories on a massive global stage.
So as we wrap up this explainer, we're really left with a huge question to ponder. If a culture can survive centuries of literal erasure, only to turn around and thrive in the digital age, what can their incredible endurance teach us about our own future? Native American history isn't just a sad record of what was lost. Not at all. It is a profound, living testament to survival and resilience. Despite centuries of concerted attempts to silence them, these nations remain a vibrant, sovereign, and absolutely essential part of the fabric of our modern world. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I really hope this leaves you wanting to dive in and learn even more.